So why don't you tell the people of North Carolina a little bit about what you would do as governor. Of course, you'd have to, maybe work with the General Assembly or not. But no. What are your ideas? What would you do?
I've already done the research, and if elected, I will be the first governor to legalize cannabis by executive order. And I would do that on day one. Decriminalize it, and I would do it to a point to where there's no way to tax it.
That's very interesting. Are you able to elaborate on that at all for the curious audience? Or do you have like a policy paper on your website that we could look into that? Because I don't know about you, but I kind of like that idea.
I will make sure that I have something up on that. But yeah, I have discussed it several times. But that's one of the first things that I'm going to do.
Gotcha. And we'll stick on that thread. I'll ask 2 in a row for you, and then to keep it fair, I'll do 2 in a row for you as well. Someone in the audience mentioned the federal government going against menthol cigarettes as a kind of punitive. Going against menthol cigarettes is kind of a punitive measure against people. We can all agree that's probably not the best thing health-wise for you, but as a personal liberty issue, should the FDA or the federal government go in the direction of trying to ban formerly perfectly legal substances, what would you do as the governor of North Carolina to combat what could be perceived as federal overreach?
Yeah, the ban of menthol cigarettes and the ban of really anything, of the vapes and all of that are all gross overreach. By and large, whether or not someone chooses to smoke fiberglass is up to them. Whether you do cocaine, marijuana, opioids, or any of these things, that should be a personal choice. Whether they're medically needed or not, that should also be a personal choice. So these are all things that they're nonviolent crimes, right? And the government might say, well, the person, the kids are selling them to or leaving them behind, they suffer. That's not, those are all just kind of made up stories, just kind of fit a narrative. But oftentimes we're punishing people who are ill, who can't afford medication, and they are really looking for help more than harm. And when we're dealing with things like the war on drugs, I'd like to see something very similar to what they did in Oregon. To where you decriminalize it to a point to where you allow people to get help. But putting new restrictions on stuff that's already been legalized, like menthol cigarettes and vape, that's just the government coming in trying to control us. And I'm absolutely against any of that.
Gotcha. Well, you mentioned cocaine. I hear that's very popular in the White House these days. So, moving on. The same question to you, actually. So, this federal overreach, banning menthol cigarettes or other things of the drug war, like, what as governor can you do to push back upon the feds to help the people of North Carolina?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, first off, as a financial planner, one of my jobs is to look at data and evidence and come up with a good solution. And here's the reality. I've looked at this in almost every area that the government tries to interfere on. Banning things doesn't work. One, they're never equipped. It doesn't matter what they ban. Some things I think most people agree should be banned, right? Murder. I think we should have a ban on murder and consequences on murder, but it doesn't stop murder. So the idea that you're going to put a ban on menthol cigarettes, what? And if someone has a pack of Newports, you're going to throw them in a cage and make the taxpayers pay for it? It's stupid policy. And I quite frankly, I think one thing that I'd lean pretty heavily on with the war on drugs, because the reality is, I'd love to write an executive order, but the GOP supermajority would just immediately override it or attack things there. So when I looked into it as governor, if I win this race, there's one thing that the GOP supermajority can't do, and that's take away the power of the pardon. So what I would do is any person who's arrested for a menthol cigarette ban, I'm going to pardon them on day one. And the same thing with anything that the government tries to ban that is not creating victimless activities. If the local municipalities don't want to work and they keep throwing these things there, I'll ask for a list on my day. Who was arrested for nonviolent, victimless activities yesterday. Fantastic. Let's sign all day long. Pardon every single one of them. You do that for a couple of weeks. Good luck finding a sheriff willing to arrest somebody for a pack of cools. Why waste the resources if they know this person's just going to get pardoned, and then they're probably going to sue us if we escalated to violence in the course of that arrest over that cigarette.